world's population is aging. Improvements in nutrition, healthcare and technology now mean that people are living longer and enjoying healthier lives than ever before. By the year 2030, 1 in 3 people worldwide will be 60 or over, and Ireland will be no exception to this phenomenon of population ageing. With advancing age, however, there is also a heightened risk of developing age-related diseases, such as Alzheimer's disease or the related dementias. Although dementia is characterised by memory loss, cognitive problems and behavioural symptoms, historically the emphasis has been on cognitive decline. But curiously, it's the behavioural symptoms associated with dementia which are known to have the greatest impact on the care of all of those diagnosed. Whilst much debate continues regarding the exact cause of these behavioural symptoms, commonly referred to as challenging behaviours, today they remain a major source of burden to caregivers and are often identified as the main reason why family members place their relatives with dementia in nursing homes. This programme is being made by the Dementia Services Information and Development Centre for both family caregivers and health service professionals working in the area of dementia. Its purpose is to explore in depth some challenging behaviours which frequently present when a person develops a dementia like Alzheimer's disease. In the programme, we will not be addressing neuropsychiatric symptoms such as hallucinations or delusions, which occur in many types of dementias and often require drug treatment. Instead, the focus will be the behavioural symptoms. Although there is a lack of understanding about the root cause of these behavioural symptoms, a general rule of thumb is that drug interventions should only ever be used after appropriate non-drug approaches have first been tried, or in a serious situation where there is a risk of harm to self or others. It is for this reason that the programme will only concern itself with non-pharmacological or psychosocial behavioural interventions. It is also important to remember that every individual's journey through dementia is different. Therefore, the programme merely provides approaches towards understanding behaviours and suggested interventions.
Different conceptual models have been used to help understand and develop interventions to combat challenging behaviours associated with dementia. The ABC model, originally derived from rational emotive therapy, now used by many professional caregivers, suggests that to better understand behaviours, we need to look at what went before the behaviour and the consequence of that behaviour. In accordance with this model, the key to successful management is to anticipate situations which might trigger off the behaviour and avoid them by changing the situation or the environment.
A more recent and equally useful model, the needs-driven behaviour, set within a nursing perspective, suggests that behavioural symptoms in dementia need to be understood against the backdrop of an individual's basic human needs. In this model, the interaction of two sets of factors, background and current, provide needs-driven behaviours. Background factors include neurological, cognitive abilities, health and psychosocial history, and are not that easily changed.
Current factors are less enduring and refer to both where the person is located, that is, his or her physical and social environment, and how the person feels, their physiological and psychological needs.
This model is useful in that it shifts the focus away from the more conventional view of behavioural symptoms as being disruptive to a perspective that considers behaviours as possible indicators of need, which, if responded to appropriately, will enhance quality of life. This model is also helpful as it builds on Kitwood's definition of dementia as a disability and encourages us to look beyond the dementia, the neurological condition, to the environment and to the psychosocial forces that impact daily on the lives of people diagnosed.
There are many different behavioural symptoms, and indeed combinations of symptoms that occur in dementia.
Some behaviours, such as hoarding or searching for lost items, are more likely to occur early on in the course of the illness. Others, such as following people around and aggression, are more likely to occur as dementia advances. Behaviours also differ depending on the type of dementia experienced.
Behaviours may also have different causes, some of which can be relatively easy to predict, whereas others may not. Irrespective of the type of dementia, some behaviours increase with the severity of dementias, and one behaviour may trigger off another. A person who has delusions of abandonment may become physically aggressive towards the health service professional who's trying to take him or her for a friendly walk. Behavioural symptoms in dementia can be transitory, lasting only a relatively short time and then stopping with the development of new symptoms. Some, however, can be a lot more enduring. As with all behavioural symptoms, a comprehensive understanding of the person's personality before the dementia is fundamental to understanding behavioural symptoms and to best practice in dementia care.
In this programme, we've chosen 3 particular behaviours, namely wandering, repetitive behaviours and aggression, since each can occur at any particular stage in the course of a dementing illness and can pose major problems for both family caregivers and for health service professionals.
Wandering is said to occur in between 11 to 39% of all cases of dementia. It's defined as the tendency for people with dementia to keep on the move, typically wanting to go home, or moving around in an aimless, confused fashion, or in pursuit of an indefinable or sometimes unattainable goal. The wandering person may sometimes become physically exhausted or disruptive to other residents and caregivers. Wandering is also associated with risks. A person may wander out onto a main road, get run down by a car, or get lost in severe weather conditions and later be found dead from hypothermia.
There are different reasons why a person with dementia may wander. Using the NDB model, which we've already outlined, these reasons may be located in the individual's background.
The daily environment may also be contributing to the desire to move around. Is the immediate environment boring, stressful, noisy, cluttered? We may also need to analyse how the person feels. Is the behaviour being used to express some inner, unmet psychological or physiological needs? Is the person bored, agitated, afraid, in pain, thirsty, hungry, too hot, too cold, fed up listening to the sighing of another fellow resident? Might medication be triggering the behaviour? As with all behavioural symptoms, careful observation and analysis of the behaviour, including the background and current factors that may be contributing to it, will enable us to identify what particular intervention should be adopted.
Sometimes all that may be needed is simply a safe place to enable the person to wander at no risk. This is why modern special dementia units are purposefully designed to include safe, multisensory enclosed gardens for residents who wish to move around.
A more complex form of wandering, and one that can occur both at home or when the person with dementia is placed in a nursing home, is when that person wants to go home and makes repeated attempts to exit a building. Anne is a 74-year-old widow, recently admitted to a specialist dementia unit in rural Ireland. Prior to admission, she'd been living in her daughter Mary's home and had the community mental health nurse and home help visit twice weekly. At home, she was used to having plenty of familiar faces around her daughter, son-in-law, the grandchildren and neighbours. She initially settled into long-term care fairly well, but for the past week she's become increasingly agitated. Most evenings, after tea, she packs up all her clothes in old paper bags and then shuffles out to the front door of the nursing home, where she sits by the door, desperate to leave.
Anne, what are you doing with all the bags? Sitting out here away from everyone.
I told you before, I want to go home. I'm waiting for Mary. She's coming in. She's going to take me home.
Anne, Mary is away on holidays. She won't be back for another week. Now it's getting close to bedtime. Why don't we go back to the room?
I want to go home. Please open the door. I don't belong here. I want to go home. I want to go to my own house.
Anne, love, I know your home is important to you. And I know your family's important to you too. But Mary's gone on holidays. Do you remember she told you she was going? And she won't be in the house for another week. And you don't want to go back to a dark, empty house now, do you? Tell you what, why don't we try ringing her to find out exactly when she's going to come back? And we can put off your visit until then.
Phone Mary on the telephone.
Yeah.
And I'll speak to her.
Of course you can.
And I'll tell her to come and bring me home.
Yeah. We put off your visit until she comes home, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Come on, we'll go in for our tea.
In analysing Anne's behaviour and applying the NDB model, let's look at the background factors leading to her wanting to leave the nursing home. These include her neurological impairment, the dementia, and how she's forgotten what she's been told about her daughter's holidays. The situational or current factors include Anne's psychological needs. She feels lonely and isolated, has had no recent family visitors, and hasn't made close friends with anyone in the nursing home. Together, these factors have produced her desire to exit the building and return home.
Having observed Anne's behaviour, we've developed several strategies. Firstly, we've asked her every morning to write a letter to her daughter, Mary, who's on holidays, telling her about what she's been doing in the nursing home. To increase socialisation, we've introduced her to another resident who's from her home village. We've made contact with the local community psychiatric nurse and home help, who know Anne well, and encouraged them to visit for the duration of her daughter Mary's holiday. We have made contact with a neighbour and asked the neighbour to bring in her favourite mug and her apron. We've also left a rummage box at the front door, which will distract her when she goes to the door to try and get out. All of these strategies have worked very well, and her behaviour has improved enormously, and she now no longer packs her bag wanting to go home in the evenings.
It can be extremely frustrating to be in the company of a person doing something repeatedly. For example, asking the same question over and over again, telling you the same story, or repeatedly searching and rummaging. A variety of such repetitive behaviours are commonly seen in people with dementia, and these can be very wearing on family members or care providers who are often unsure how to respond. Increased frustration can lead to negative interactions, strained relationships, and an understandable desire to find ways of stopping the behaviour.
Where are you going, John?
It must be nearly time for Mass.
It's Saturday morning. I've told you before, Mass isn't until this evening. Where are you off to, John?
It must be nearly time for Mass.
It's only after 12. There's no Mass until this evening. Come on, give me a hand in the kitchen.
Mrs. Fox is getting frustrated with Mr. Fox's repetitive questions and behaviour. We'll now look at several different strategies to address the issue.
Strategy 1. If Mrs. Fox has the patience, she could simply continue to remind her husband verbally about the day and time according as he asks the same question.
There's no mess until this evening. Come on, give me a hand in the kitchen.
Strategy 2. She may consider preventing the behaviour by placing memory aids such as clocks, calendars or written reminders. Strategy 3 might result in her engaging Mr. Fox in an activity which, through distraction, puts his mind on a different track.
Looks like it's going to rain. Will you bring the bit of washing in off the line for me, please, love?
This can be helpful both in cases where the individual has become stuck in a loop or where the behaviour is being triggered off by boredom.
Yet another strategy for Mrs. Fox is to remove herself entirely from the situation, particularly if there's someone who can take over. While these are strategies that might be reasonably applied, there are many occasions when we need to look beyond strategies and ask the question, what's behind the behaviour? Or what function might the behaviour serve? What's behind this behaviour? Perhaps the person is worried about some upcoming event. Anticipatory anxiety is common in persons with a dementia. Consequently, what's needed may well be reassurance and a calm rather than a terse response. A person may be asking the same question simply because he has genuinely forgotten the answer, or is telling the same story in an attempt to communicate. In the latter case, clearly the appropriate response would be to engage in conversation, not try to prevent or avoid communication. Repeated storytelling may also serve the function of increasing the person's sense of self-esteem by recalling past achievements, or may evoke pleasant memories from days gone by. Studies have shown how this type of reminiscence therapy can improve people's mood and self-esteem.
A systematic observation of the person and the behaviour should take account of both the individual's neurological and cognitive impairment, health and psychosocial profile, along with his or her psychological and physiological needs. They say, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And equally we could argue, if it's not doing any harm, why stop it? Margaret may derive much satisfaction from feeling that she's still helping out, even if that's not obvious to a casual observer.
Aggression, which includes verbal, physical and sexual aggression, is another behaviour that may happen in the course of any dementing illness, and like any other behavioural symptoms, may happen over a limited time, or alternatively it may last longer. Aggression is said to be the behavioural symptom that has the greatest impact on caregivers and is cited as a factor leading to institutionalisation. Older age, being male, the severity of dementia and psychosis are associated with increased levels of aggression in people with dementia. Intrusion into a personal space is considered a trigger factor. Examples of situations that may instigate this type of aggression include showering, toileting, and helping with a person's activities of daily living. There's also a close correlation between aggression and delusions, that's false beliefs. The presence of paranoid delusions, false beliefs relating to oneself, may also increase the likelihood that a carer's approach is misinterpreted as a threat and a person with dementia may react aggressively.
As mentioned earlier, there are many different behaviours which may be considered as aggressive. These include verbal aggression, shouting, accusatory behaviour, cursing and verbal threats. Physical aggression, threatening gestures, pushing, hitting and punching, brandishing a weapon, kicking, throwing objects, spitting or biting, slapping and scratching and banging doors. And then there's sexual aggression, unwanted intercourse and inappropriate touching.
In dementia, the control mechanism in the brain that regulates our behaviour and keeps us all behaving appropriately, socially, becomes impaired. This may result in some people becoming disinhibited and behaving aggressively. Although certain dementia subtypes, such as frontotemporal dementia, may make people more prone to behave aggressively, any of the already mentioned behaviours can occur in any dementia subtype and indeed at any point in time in the course of the illness. In general, verbal aggression tends to be more common than physical aggression.
Mostly I can remember the meals that Claire used to make at home on the farm. Oh, how she loved to cook. And after I retired, I used to spend a lot of time with her in the kitchen, peeling the vegetables, cutting up the meat, and on a Friday making the colcannon with the milk and the onions. After she died, I didn't do too well on my own. When my memory started to fail me, and I started losing weight, PJ, the eldest son, he became very concerned, and in no time at all they'd shifted me into this home. You know, I was never very good with crowds, gangs of people. They made me nervous. But here, I have to eat my meal in a large, noisy room with people all shouting and calling across to one another, and the dishes and the clatter.
Do you like dessert? How do you eat your dinner? You get dessert?
You know, the ladies at my table, they're all elderly, you know, not my cup of tea. Wouldn't be my choice for company. And one of them has this really nasty habit of humming. God, that really sickens me. And this other one, really inquisitive, non-stop talk. I keep asking the same questions over and over and over again. Am I supposed to buy dinner for all these women?
He's got your dinner. Do you know what you're talking? I don't have any. You have money.
What's on this?
That's your dinner.
Am I supposed to eat it off this, or do I remove the dish? And if I do, then where can I put the tray?
I don't know.
Who's this strange uniformed woman? She's a waitress or what?
Come on, your dinner's going.
Why is she raising her hand saying, shame, dinner's going cold. Christ, she can't even get me name right.
Same place,
Right, cauliflower. I could never stand the taste of cauliflower. Oh, God. No, they're all going to think I'm totally stupid.
Now what have you done? Have you spilled that drink again?
Several competing theories could be used to explain this aggressive incident. One theory, one might consider, that the irreversible changes in Seamus's brain caused this aggressive incident. However, this strictly biological perspective fails to consider several other equally relevant factors impacting on the situation. For example, it may be that the behaviour occurred because of the nature of the nursing home's physical and social environment, an overstimulating, bewildering setting with inadequate lighting, and being forced to sit next to people he would never normally befriend. Whilst the background factors we know are very difficult to change, successful interventions here might include the effective manipulation of those situational factors, especially those relating to the dining room environment and the tasks demanded of Mr. O'Connor whilst eating. He now has most of his meals served in his own bedroom. His food and beverage preferences have been recorded, and a new care plan has been developed for him which takes into account his likes and dislikes. To help him identify what he's eating, his meals are served on plates in contrasting colours, and during mealtime his favourite music is played.
What we've attempted to do in this programme is to describe creative ways in which caregivers of those with dementia can develop successful interventions to combat challenging behaviours associated with the illness. Throughout the programme we have drawn extensively on the NDB model to help provide insights into understanding challenging behaviours from a carer's perspective. The model assumes a lifetime process, with individual development being rooted in personal history and culture. Finally, it needs to be remembered that successful interventions in addressing dementia-related behavioural problems should involve a thorough understanding of the individual, creative thinking and ongoing collaboration between health service providers, family caregivers and most importantly the person with dementia.